humans. 1.9 million species extinct. One planet. Where are we heading? What should we do?
Watch Climate Tracker, only on WION. World is one.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani, and these are the top headlines this hour. India and the United States are keen to conclude a $3 billion deal for procuring MQ-9B Predator drones. Long-standing discussions are set to be at a final stage as the issue is taken up again during India's national security U.S. visit. U.S. President's son Hunter Biden has asked for a full-fledged criminal probe by the state and federal agencies into the content of his laptop. In an aggressive new legal strategy, Hunter Biden called for investigation to extend to several so-called right-wing political figures. Meanwhile, the Philippines grants United States access to 4 more military bases as the two nations seek to counter China's increasing assertiveness on Taiwan and in disputed South China Sea.
Go ahead, pass that, Jake.
India's Adani Group's market losses top $100 billion as halted share sales spooks investors after a damning report by American short seller Hindenburg Research. And police in Jammu and Kashmir recover improvised explosive devices packaged as perfume bottles. Perfumed IED were recovered from a Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist during a probe into the Narwal Pass in Jammu and Kashmir on January 21. After an expansive partnership by national security advisors of the United States and India, the two countries are on the verge of sealing a landmark drone deal. Washington will be sending 30 MQ-9B Predator armed drones. The deal will cost $3 billion, and it will add another marvel to New Delhi's arsenal. The deal is not new. It is 5 years old and is moving towards completion. There's no official agreement yet, however, and officials say there are no bureaucratic hurdles. It has been pending for quite some time now. Why it's taking so long? The reasons are not yet publicly known. MQ-98 Predator armed drones ride on modern technology. They can fly further than anything else in this category, spend more time in the air, and handle a greater diversity of missions than any other similar aircraft. It isn't just for military purposes. These aircrafts can conduct search and rescue, help fight wildfires, and support customs authorities. So let's understand how this will help both parties. India is eager for an early decision because these drones would help surveillance in the Indian Ocean, also along the LAC. For the United States, it's more of a political move. Joe Biden is eyeing next year's presidential elections, and a deal like this means many more jobs for Americans. The Indian government is encouraging the application of drones in various sectors, one of the most important being the defense sector. The war in Ukraine has highlighted the importance of a strong UAV technology. India has around 10 types of drones: DRDO Netra, Heron, DRDO Rastam, Tapaz BH-201, DRDO Imperial Eagle, and DRDO Lakshya are some of the big examples. So on this story, we were earlier joined by Nitin A. Gokhale, national security analyst from Delhi. Please listen in.
It is a very potent platform for what is called ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And it has been proved in Indian conditions to do this, the work that MQ-9 Predator does, because the Indian Navy has leased 2 of them to do surveillance in the Malacca Straits and the Bay of Bengal, as well as the Indian Ocean. This platform, which is a US product or a US company product, has been used during the Dolam crisis in 2017 on the border with China in Siliguri corridor or in the Chicken's Neck, as well as during the Ladakh crisis for surveillance and intelligence and reconnaissance. So it is an important platform that India can acquire and should acquire going forward. Well, the Americans have been trying quite hard to replace Russia as India's principal weapon supplier. But this is going to be difficult in the short and medium term because there are legacy platforms which India has of Russian origin. And the Americans are not very forthcoming in sharing either technology or platform with India. Although I must say in the past 15 years, things have changed. But in no way the Americans can hope to replace Russia as India's principal military supplier in the next 5 or 6 years, because some of the equipment is deeply entrenched in the Indian military, and they have a lifetime or a lifespan for another 20 years or so. For instance, the T-90 tanks, which have been sourced from Russia. There are fighter jets, Sukhoi 30 MKI, which have been sourced from Russia. So it's difficult to replace everything from Russia. It's a gradual process, and the Americans are aware of this. They will try their best to wean away India from Russia, but it's not going to happen in a hurry, is my sense.
The Philippines allows U.S. wider access to military bases. This announcement came as a deal on Thursday to give U.S. troops access to 4 more bases in the Philippines. The agreement to expand cooperation in, quote, strategic areas of the country was made during a visit by U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. This is Austin's 6th trip to the region. The Philippines' cooperation is critical to reinforce its dominance in the region. The 2 countries have a decades-old security alliance, which allows U.S. troops to rotate through 5 Philippine bases, including those near disputed waters. It also allows the U.S. military to store defense equipment and supplies on those bases. The United States is also seeking to strengthen alliances with other nations, including Australia and Britain. Australia has agreed to step up its pace of military interactions with the U.S., while Japan is planning to enter joint exercises with both countries. The U.S. has also opened an embassy in the Solomon Islands after 30 years in a bid to boost diplomatic relations. Beijing claims sovereignty over almost the entire South China Sea and has ignored a ruling at The Hague that its claims have no legal basis. The Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei also have overlapping claims to parts of the sea. China also claims self-ruled Taiwan as part of its territory, to be reclaimed one day by force if necessary. The Biden administration has indicated that it intends to deepen regional treaties and alliances with South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Australia, and Thailand for a free and open Indo-Pacific and to balance Chinese influence in the region. Meanwhile, U.S. and South Korean militaries held joint air drills over the Yellow Sea. These exercises are seen to be a direct response to North Korea's nuclear ambitions and as expected, Pyongyang has hit back. The joint display of military power came a day after U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his South Korean counterpart held talks on greater security cooperation to take on North Korea. They also agreed to increase the frequency of joint military drills and expand their scale and level. The latest drills involve stealth fighter planes from the U.S. Air Force and fighter planes from the South Korean military. In response, North Korea has threatened what it calls, quote, the toughest reaction to the United States. Pyongyang said the allies were pushing tensions to an extreme line and threatened to turn the peninsula into a huge war arsenal and a more critical war zone. Military tensions in the Korean peninsula intensified sharply in 2022 as North Korea conducted a record number of missile tests. This included its most advanced intercontinental missile. Any joint military exercise between the United States and South Korea infuriates Pyongyang, which sees them as a rehearsal for an invasion. Pyongyang has often responded with threats and drills of its own. In a statement carried by North Korea's state news agency, Pyongyang said it was not interested in dialogue as long as Washington pursues hostile policies. The White House, however, on Wednesday rejected North Korea's accusations as being baseless. The U.S. reiterated that it's willing to meet North Korean representatives at a time and place convenient for them. It termed the joint exercise routine and fully consistent with past practices. With the U.S. government set to exhaust its ability to pay its bills on time within months, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy met President Joe Biden at the White House. Although the hour-long meet did not yield any breakthrough, Biden told McCarthy that there was room for compromise. The president had earlier insisted that Congress would have to pass a debt limit increase with no strings attached to avoid a financial disaster. Republicans have refused to raise the statutory debt limit unless Biden accepts some cuts in federal spending. The president says he will not negotiate conditions for an increase, instead calling for a separate discussion with congressional leaders about how to reduce the deficit and control the national debt while continuing to grow the economy. The statement signaled that Biden was open to a parallel discussion on tax and spending issues with McCarthy. While in this first face-to-face meeting, the House Speaker walked out without a tangible sign of progress, which no one had expected, but he nonetheless expressed some optimism.
I thought this was a good meeting. We promised we would continue the conversation. We'll see if we can get there. I think at the end of the day, we can find common ground. I really do.
The federal government has run a budget deficit every year since the year 2000, forcing it to borrow money and add to a national debt, which has now grown over $31.4 trillion. Biden and McCarthy had earlier blamed each other for the impasse in raising the debt ceiling. The president called the speaker a decent man, quote, who had caved to extremists in his party to take power.
Some type of threat at the last minute of debt ceiling? Nobody wants
They deliberately choose to inflict this kind of pain on the American people. Why?
French naval forces have seized thousands of assault rifles, machine guns, and anti-tank missiles in the Gulf of Oman. And according to officials, this assignment coming from Iran was heading to Yemen's Houthi rebels. This is the latest interaction amid Yemen's long-running war. However, Iran did not immediately acknowledge the seizure. The announcement comes as Iran faces increasing Western pressure over its shipment of drones to Russia in its war against Ukraine. The seizure occurred on January 15th in the Gulf of Oman, and according to U.S. Central Command, the routes have been historically used to traffic weapons unlawfully from Iran to Yemen. According to images released by the U.S. military, the weapons are similar to others captured by American forces in other shipments, which were headed back to Tehran. There's no end in sight for Adani Group's troubles. The shares of Adani companies continued their sharp plunge for the sixth straight session on Thursday, taking the losses to over $100 billion and counting. Trading on Indian course in 5 Adani Group firms were halted after shares hit a lower circuit. A lower circuit is when trading is stopped in shares of companies which hit a lower limit. That comes after the business empire canceled its flagship firm's $2.5 billion share sale. Adani Enterprises, whose stock crashed nearly 30% on Wednesday, said that it was working with its bankers to refund investors who had committed the buy in the new shares.
After a fully subscribed FPO, yesterday's decision of his withdrawal would have surprised many. But considering the volatility of the market seen yesterday, our board strongly felt that it would not have been morally correct to proceed with the FPO. For me, the interest of my investor is paramount and everything is secondary. Hence, to insulate the investors from potential losses, we have withdrawn the FPO.
The company's shares had plunged about a third on Wednesday, marking its worst day ever, hours before the company called off the shares offer on the FPO late on Wednesday. A Reuters report quoting a source said India's securities regulator, the SEBI, was looking into any irregularities in the deal. The SEBI is also examining the Indian conglomerate's stocks plunge since Hindenburg's allegations last week. Now questions loom large on the group's decision. What seems certain is that retail investors have lost their confidence in Adani. That was clear despite the Adani Enterprises shares offer being a success because only 12% of retail investors had signed up for the offer. Large investors have stepped in and bailed out the Indian empire on Tuesday, which was the last day of the FPO offers. Still, it seems Adani had recovered some investor confidence after the FPO, but it got worse after a large global brokerage firm, Credit Suisse, stopped accepting Adani bonds as collateral for marginal loans. Brokerage firms give their clients loans to cover for any market losses in their holdings by giving some security as collateral. Credit Suisse aligned a zero lending value for Adani firm's assets. Now, a Reuters report shows a Citi will not accept Adani securities either as collateral for marginal loans to clients. Gautam Adani has lost his crown as Asia's richest, and he has dropped off the top 10 wealthiest billionaires list as well. There seems to be no let-up in the crisis for the Indian empire. Well, for now at least. Well, shifting tracks to cricket, Indian batter Shubman Gill's stellar form in 2023 continues. The 23-year-old opener smashed his maiden T201 ton in Ahmedabad as India clinched yet another bilateral series at home, thumping New Zealand by a record margin of 168 runs in the series decider. Indian fans are by now used to the sight of seeing Gil taking off his helmet, swinging it with his hands, and then letting out a roar. This is the ritual that the new superstar of Indian batting follows after scoring a ton. And now the fans have already seen this celebration 4 times this year as Gil continues to take the bowlers to the cleaners. It was no different against the Kiwis in the 3rd T20 International, relishing a batting-friendly wicket. Gil unleashed a flurry of sublime strokes against the hapless bowlers, cranking an unbeaten 126, which took him just 63 balls and was peppered with 12 fours and 7 big sixes. With that knock, 23-year-old Gil became the youngest player to score a century for India in T20 internationals. And this is the highest score by an Indian batter in the format. He joined in a list of players like Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma to score centuries in all 3 formats of international cricket. And he is the second youngest after Pakistan's Ahmad Shahzad to score centuries across all 3 formats. The 2018 Under-19 World Cup winner gave a good account of his stroke making and temperament earlier in the ODI series when he became the youngest ever to score a double century. And in the same match, became the fastest Indian to reach 1,000 ODI runs in his 19th innings. Gil is the leading run scorer in ODI cricket this year with 597 runs at an average of 113.40 and scores with a strike rate of 126. He has 3 scores of over 100 and 150 to his name.
It's good to seize the hunger. And when you're in good nick, you've got to make it count. And every time he's got to start.
Now on to some entertainment news. Die-hard Forrest Gump fans will soon be able to see their favorite pair, Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, back on the big screen together after 30 years. But there's a twist. The 66-year-old Hanks and 56-year-old Wright will be de-aged as they reunite with Forrest Gump director Robert Zemeckis for an upcoming film called Here. Robert Zemeckis is also partnering with Metaphysic, a company which is quite famous on TikTok. The company has also gained popularity on America's Got Talent for its deepfakes. If reports are to be believed, the movie, which is set to be released in 2024, will only use the new tool Metaphysics Live to de-age the stars. No VFX or any other form of techniques will be required for the film. But the question is it safe, or is this a huge risk? Filmmakers in the past have tried using de-aging technology like Martin Scorsese in The Irishman, and it ran the risk of being the film's biggest problem. Since so much of the movie takes place in the past with, quote, younger versions of the characters, unconvincing de-aging technology could be a huge distraction from the actual storytelling. Well, only time will tell if de-aging technology works successfully for these 2 legendary actors. That's all for WION Live Broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. Thank you so much for staying with us so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Meanwhile, don't go away. More news and headlines coming up on WION World as well.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old